Welcome to the Speaker Meeting, a space where we break the silence one story at a time. Every episode, you'll hear from someone who's been there, through the struggle of addiction, the turning point into recovery, and the journey after. Because no matter where you are, you're not alone. Recovery is possible, and hope is real. My hope is that by sharing these stories, you'll believe it to be true. My name is Chibi. My sobriety date is April 5th, 2024, and this is the Speaker Meeting.
Okay, my name's Gil. My sobriety date was actually August 9th, 2020, so I just celebrated 5 years yesterday, Saturday.
Congratulations.
So, exactly. Jazz hands.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, and thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. We have a tradition on this podcast wherein typically the guest will pull a random tarot card out of a random tarot deck. But because we are doing this virtually, I randomly pulled one for you. And the purposes of the card is to just kind of provide a grounding energy for the conversation ahead. And the card that was pulled for you was the Six of Swords reversed. And this is a card that speaks to the difficulty of moving on, even when you know you need to. It can signal feeling stuck between the pain of the past and the uncertainty of what's ahead, and resisting the very transitions that could bring healing. And, in recovery, it often represents moments when old habits or environments still have a hold, making it really hard to fully step into a new chapter of your life. And I'm just wondering how this card resonates with you and your journey.
I would say still working on those behaviors, on the addictive behaviors. Unfortunately, I think anyone that's ever dealt with substance abuse, with addiction, at different stages in your life, like I would say in my example, or in my experience rather, although I was able to quit drinking and the drug use, unfortunately, a lot of those behaviors that drove that are still there. And that's still something that, I consistently work on trying to improve. I mean, I think I've definitely gotten much better at recognizing them. Like when I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I'm falling into something unhealthy again. So yeah, I would say that's probably where that card ties in with me.
Yeah. Well, at least you recognize it. That's the important part that is happening.
What is it? Admitting you have a problem is the first step.
We always fall right back there. We'll get to the character defects later. But why don't we take it back and, what was your relationships like with addictive substances or addictive behaviors in the beginning, and how did that evolve over time?
Well, I think I've actually thought a lot about this, especially in the past few days. Unfortunately, I didn't have the best childhood. My dad, he dealt a lot with, had an issue with substance abuse, with alcohol abuse. So both my sister and I, we grew up in very much this sort of anxiety-ridden environment. I think obviously, culturally, my mother's Mexican, my dad is from El Salvador, but both being from Latin cultures, especially my mom kind of always had this mentality that she had to, stick by her husband, regardless of what he was doing, which unfortunately in the long term really, ends up coloring a lot of what your behaviors are like as you start to grow older. I mean, I remember being a kid and being like, I'm never going to touch alcohol. And then, lo and behold, flash forward to 20s or whatnot, just as bad, if not worse than my father. Um, so I think just in that, how it ties into addictive behaviors, I think a lot of it more than anything had to do with anxiety, with
Mm.
depression. We'll probably discuss this in further detail later, but I did end up going through a rehab program in 2020. And it was interesting that um, it honestly all stemmed from just like severe depression that had never really been identified.
Mm.
And I think that that's kind of one thing that I'm so happy that there's more of an awareness around mental health and everything, because essentially, I mean, from the age of 17, 18, I think I was just self-medicating.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that lasted from age 18 to age 38, essentially.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think it was, within that dynamic of our family, my father was in and out of jail. Uh, from a very young age, there was this sort of adultification of myself where, I was supposed to be the man of the house. I think now that's a very tall order for a 7, 8-year-old to be told, well, I'm in jail, so you're responsible for your mom and your sister.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, definitely throughout my childhood, throughout my high school years, it was just such a focus in trying to not cause any trouble for my mom, because I knew that she was already dealing with so much through her relationship with my father. Um, yeah, but then I think, as I moved out of the house, I went very far away from Texas. I
Mm.
went to New York. I had no desire to come back. And again, I think, obviously as time has gone on, and I've sort of been able to revisit like why I made those decisions, because I live in the Houston area again, with my husband, and I don't mind it. It's not as terrible as I thought it was when I left, but I think that there was honestly just so much more than anything. I think just pain and sadness around my experience here, that I wanted to get as far away as I possibly could.
Mm.
And not realizing it, but it was just like I not wanting to essentially turn my back on my family, but just wanting to, I guess, have that opportunity to just really maybe be myself without that added responsibility of, you have to be there for your mom, for your sister,
Yeah.
all that. So, I mean, unconsciously, honestly, I don't think at age 17, at age 18, this was like, oh, I just want to get away. No, it's just like, I need a change. I couldn't explain it at the time, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I mean, I think more than anything, I said probably growing up in that environment, obviously the levels of anxiety, just living in a household that could be very volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Dad was good, he was amazing. He's and I mean, to this day, my father's a wonderful person. Like, he's a very sweet person, a very kind person. But I think, as any of us can attest, when you're under the influence of something, it completely changes your personality. So I mean, Dad could be great one day, the next day he could be, ready to punch me and like flipping furniture. So, yeah, I think, it's, for years, I think I internalized that, and that initial exposure to, I guess, alcohol, it felt like an escape.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it made me feel good. I wasn't, just this ball of tension all the time.
Yeah. Well, the book specifically says something along the lines of like, I mean, we drink because we like the way it feels when we drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, for sure.
a couple of things thank you for sharing all that. A couple of things
Mm-hmm.
came up as you were talking about that. You mentioned that a lot of this probably stemmed from an undiagnosed depression of sorts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like it was undiagnosed because to a certain level you were self-medicating and masking it, or was it just undiagnosed because like it wasn't talked about, right? Like, we don't talk about what's wrong. We don't address, like, it's not depression. You're just sad, mijo, figure it out.
Yeah. No, for sure. Culture, I think, has a lot to do with it. We grew up in a very religious household, so it was
Mm,
essentially your faith was supposed to get you through that. I think after going through rehab, um, and obviously going, working with very closely with a psychiatrist, with psychologists, because when I actually got to that point, they couldn't even really fully diagnose me because my alcoholism had gone to such an extreme level that I mean I was pretty much downing a bottle of vodka a day. Like it was not, it was bad. But all that, it was obviously there was all this um, I was exhibiting all these signs of depression, but also, the doctor was like, I'm seeing kind of signs of you being bipolar, but I don't know if it's your bipolar because of your level of alcohol abuse or if you're actually bipolar.
mm,
Luckily, through medication therapy, all that, it turns out that it was just the alcoholism. But yeah, I mean, circling back to like the depression and all that, I think a lot of it was culture. I mean, I'm sure you can probably identify, obviously, being gay, being Hispanic, being Latino. I don't know in regards to your family, but my family was, incredibly religious. So I think there was a lot there. It kind of became, I don't want to say a perfect storm, but there were just a lot of things that I think were not working in my favor.
mm,
And yeah, I mean, it's, if you're really, you've kind of been taught that your, faith is supposed to get you through it. Yeah, you don't know that you're supposed to, that there could actually be something chemically wrong with your brain.
mm.
So as I was saying, after this whole rehab program, it was like the strangest feeling to not have like constant thoughts of even just like ending my life. Like that was, it had just been such a constant like thing for me for years, from I would say like 15, 16, so obviously like late 30s. And it's like, wow, that's not normal. But, being in an environment where you don't know that that's normal. I guess that's the only thing that, it's, yeah, you just kind of learn how to manage it, so, and deal with it or escape it, which is what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you've mentioned the rehab a couple of times and the given your sobriety date, that means you got sober during the pandemic,
Hmm.
right at the start of it, give or take. So what was the moment or series of moments that led to you really realizing like, oh, I need to do something about this and maybe I need help to do that?
um, I think I knew I needed that my behavior, my relationship, I should say, with alcohol was not normal from many years prior to that. I would say probably in like my late 20s. Um, in my 30s, I lived in Asia for a long time. So I was living in Shanghai. And I think in Shanghai in particular, I had landed a role that paid very well, so I was making all this money at age, I don't know, 28, 29, whatever. And it was very much like for the foreigners living in the city, it was very much a party culture, it's like drugs, whatnot, so unfortunately, I definitely got sucked into that. Um, right, what was it, 2018, I moved to Hong Kong for a design role there. And I think that although I wanted to live there for a long time, I think the isolation, because I didn't have any friends, I didn't really know people, it wasn't necessarily the easiest city to meet people.
Mm,
Um, a very, you get a ton of finance guys there, so I mean, there's rampant drug use, all that. So again, it's that exposure to just like uh, whatever you want, it's available. Obviously, there's a lot of wealth there in that city because of the same thing. I mean, you have these guys working in finance, these people, I should say, working in finance. And so there's that access to so much. But yeah, I think, obviously living there, the isolation, the company that I went to work for in Hong Kong, it was, that role didn't turn out to be what I was hoping it would be. And it was also just a very extreme work culture, which is very common for many places in Asia. I mean, essentially working, from 9 a.m. to about 11 a.m. 11 p.m. And that was just my daily routine, 6 days a week. And so, just I think it was a combination of just being tired, being unhappy. So, we just go through, and obviously the pandemic, I think had such a negative effect on so many of us, the isolation, the whatnot. Um, it had so many things I think had kind of gone wrong for me in the sense of, my job prospects were not what I was hoping they would be. Obviously, the fact that I was showing up hungover every day was not helping. Mm. So, I became, obviously I wasn't a person that you would want to have on your staff. I was unreliable. When I was there, I was giving 150%, but when I was there, I should say sober. And then, like just in my five senses, I was great, but that was few and far between, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, I think, just a lot of it had to do with my family, my mom in particular. She helped me find a program actually in Mexico. So I went to this really great clinic in the state of Puebla. It was an inpatient program. I was there for around 6 weeks, I think it was, 6 weeks, so nearly 2 months. But, I can't really say that. I think it just got progressively worse. I mean, I really can't say that there's anything that, that it was the moment. Like, it was just something that I always knew that, you need to get it together. The things kind of lined up. And, I was able to get to that point. But I guess the one thing that I definitely started noticing towards the end was just the fact that so many people had started to distance themselves from me. Like, I just was not fun to be around anymore, because they're like, again, that being unpredictable. You might be great. We might have a great night out. You might show up drunk already and make a fool of yourself. You might get aggressive. You might throw up all over the place. Like, it's not fun to be out with you or to do stuff with you because we just don't know what we're going to get, you know? And of course, I mean, there was obviously, I felt very hurt by that at the time, but, now in retrospect, it's like, oh, God, of course. I mean, I completely get that,
And so so did you go straight from like Shanghai to Puebla to this rehab place?
So that was actually really funny because, at the time I was actually, my husband now, he was still in Shanghai while I was living in Hong Kong. But, because of the pandemic, there were no flights, there were no whatever. So right before they started locking down a lot of places in China in particular, I had traveled to Shanghai to spend some time with hubby. And then I essentially got stuck in China. I couldn't leave. So my process to leave the country was actually like really crazy because it took me like over 3 months to try and just get a way out. So what I had to do was, because I had, the governmental systems are slightly different. So I had a Hong Kong residency, which allowed me to enter the territory again without, having to do, I was a resident in Hong Kong, so I was allowed access to stay there. So I came back from China. They quarantined me for, I think it was 2 days in a hotel. Then I had to move straight into an Airbnb, and we had a tracking bracelet that was given to us as soon as we left. So it was 2 weeks of that, I think. So, I mean, you can imagine 2 weeks in some random Airbnb, nothing to do. There was an equivalent of like a DoorDash or something. So it was 2 weeks of stupor. I mean, honestly, just like drinking, passing out, waking up at 2 a.m, maybe seeing what I had available in the fridge to eat. Then, probably start drinking again, pass out. Like, it was just, those 2 weeks were essentially like a blur. Like, I can't really say that I remember much, but of course it was also the mind fuck of being completely isolated, no access to anyone. So I was able to secure a flight from Hong Kong to LA, and then LA to Monterrey, where my parents are, and then from there we went to Puebla. But yeah, it was a crazy process. I mean, I remember flying from Hong Kong to LA. There were literally maybe like 30 people on the plane, and, where this is one of these big, like, I don't know, 727s, but like an international flight, airplane. So
Yeah.
it's like, it was just, there was like people just every other row, there were people in like the hazmat suits. So yeah, it was quite an adventure trying to get back.
That is wild. And also just the process to get you to the rehab, like that, I can only imagine the kind of, I guess, willpower or determination that you had to like get sober, to go through all of that. Like, I know for me, like when I hit that moment of just like utter surrender of like, I can't do this anymore, something has to change and change now, the ER was down the street, like I did not have to go on a transcontinental flight to get to where I needed to go, and considering how much you'd been drinking, I can imagine the detox of it was not fun either.
Oh, it was horrible. It's like I look at photos of that, and I was just obviously like my face was so swollen. I think I was constantly shaking. Like it was weird because it would happen like, occasionally, but then, especially towards like that last year, I mean, it was just constant. I'd wake up and I'd be shaking. I was like, fuck, obviously not knowing that it's like, yeah, your body going through withdrawal. I think I was more than anything just tired. Like it's either, like you get it together, you get help, or you're dead.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you can probably identify with that. I think you kind of end up losing hope. So, I mean, for me, it honestly was just my family. So I'm very fortunate to have their support. My spouse, at the time we were still, just not dating, but, we weren't officially married, but, he was a huge pillar of support. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know if he was going to be around when I came out of rehab, just because of how tumultuous our entire relationship had been. I think he's a very forgiving person. And yeah, lo and behold, that's a whole other story, but actually still, in the pandemic, we ended up getting married, but because he was in Asia, but, he would be unable to secure a tourist visa at that time. I did some research and I found out that we could get married on Zoom through the state of Utah. So we had a virtual wedding in order to get, all his immigration stuff processed so he could come and join me in the US. But yeah, no, it was quite a wild ride. I think I'm so grateful that I did have, that my family was around, and Yao and my husband, like that I did have, these few people that did stick around, because it was just a lot to handle.
Yeah, for sure. And was this your first time like attempting sobriety?
No. No, I remember in like my late 20s, I actually had gone to see I want to say she was a psychologist. I forget exactly what her title was, but she did hypnosis essentially. So that's supposed to help. So, I did some sessions with her. It didn't stick. While I was living in Shanghai, actually, my roommate, I lived with two girls, and one day she, because again, you don't realize what an effect your drinking has on others around you. In this case, my roommate. So these two roommates, I mean, they just didn't know what to do with me. I was a mess. So one of them actually found the local AA group in Shanghai, and she put me in touch with them. So I did AA while I was there, on and off. But I think I wasn't ready, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I I think for me, to me personally, I feel that a big factor in my success in sobriety was the medical care,
Mm.
because I think there definitely was a big mental health issue there that had not been identified. So, I mean, to this day, I still continue working with a counselor, doing regular therapy. It just, I guess, unfortunately, our brains are just really wired differently, and we're not able to process normal things the way that quote unquote normal people would.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that was gonna be my next question in terms of like, so you make it to the rehab in Puebla, and you're there for 6 weeks. What does that kind of treatment look like? I mean, you mentioned therapy, psychologist. What did that kind of like recovery, the beginning of that recovery journey look like that kind of set you up for success?
Well, it was crazy because first you walk in, they strip you of everything essentially. Like, I mean, you can't have phones, you can't have anything, no jewelry, no nothing. And you're led into this room. There was like a uniform, you had a uniform in a sense of like, they just asked you to bring like plain t-shirts and like track pants or whatnot. So you walk in and you first go through like, I think it's 48 hours of detox. So essentially you're hooked up to an IV and knocked out. And yeah, I guess you're just flushing your system. So a very uncomfortable thing. And just, again, that felt like a haze. I remember at some point they bring some other gentleman. There were two hospital beds in this room. And I wake up and there's some like random dude next to me, and it was in and out. You're just like, you're hazy. You don't really know what's going on. But no, this program was really great for me. I mean, I think there's definitely the person themselves has to really have that desire to want to move past this, to get a handle on their issues. But yeah, I mean, there was, as I said, that we had access to not only psychological treatment, but there was also a psychiatrist on site that you would work with. So, after they would analyze your case, you'd be given, a full medication essentially, to try and help you with obviously the detox, to try and get you kind of squared away with, whatever other issues you may have. I mean, for me, obviously depression, anxiety, whatnot. So I think that the medical side of it was really helpful. I actually was able to continue working with the psychologist that I was working there at the clinic for, I mean, at least a solid 2 years afterwards. We do Skype sessions, so that was great. I can't really say that there was any one particular thing regarding that program. I think they really did try to attack it from all angles. There was a lot of reflection, obviously. I think that was probably one of the first times that I was able to kind of hold myself accountable for my role, what this was, and what role I was playing. It was, but my entire life blaming everyone else. It was my parents. It was my situation. It was my boss. It was my partner. It was everyone else's fault but me. So obviously going through this process, it was good to be able to learn how to hold myself accountable for what role I was playing in this. So.
Yeah. Going back to the beginning of, the first step of fixing a problem is identifying it. Right. So after you get out of this inpatient residential facility, where do you go from there? And what does like those early days? Because, rehab is a bubble. It's a nice little comfortable bubble, a little incubator of sorts to get you ready to go back out and face the real world,
So I spent, I want to say maybe around another month with my parents in Monterrey. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the time, my sister was living in Laredo. So she allowed me to come live with her. There was, I think our relationship had become quite fractured. And I mean, how close we've always been, but there had been, I mean, I had gotten into this really bad habit of calling people when I was drunk, and I would just say horrible things, not remembering a word of it the next day, So, uh, I mean, there were times that I would call my sister, and God knows what I would say, my mother, friends. So there was, it took a long time for my sister and and me to kind of repair our relationship, but it was honestly, I think the fact that I was in a new place, that I didn't know anybody, um, that I really kind of had to turn inward and really just focus, be with myself, because obviously, as I mentioned to you, my husband wasn't with me at the time. It just really was my sister and myself.
Mm-hmm.
So being in that new environment was really helpful. I What was really interesting too was just kind of the way that my friend circle changed. I think that there's so many people that I was, that to me were very important. And it was interesting to see how many people kind of dropped off. I just like really never heard from them again, or, you know, years later they'd reach out. And I think that was really eye opening, because there were some of these friends, so-called friends. I would have taken the shit off my back for, and it was very sad to see that that really wasn't reciprocal. It was very much like fair weather. It's like the moment things got real, they said peace. So, yeah. But anyways, going back to your question, how I think, yeah, being in that new environment, obviously still continuing with like the counseling and whatnot. My routines just changed. I'll never forget that first New Year's. So I guess it would have been New Year's going into 2021. I was used to just being blasted, waking up at 3 p.m. on the first. Going just, I remember I sat with Gabby in the living room, and we like watched TV for a bit. I was in bed by like 12:15, But with that being said, just it felt good to wake up on the first, and like normal, not just like feeling like your head had been stomped on.
Yeah. That was very similar. My first New Year's, it was like, all right, well, those were the fireworks. I guess I'm going to go, that was fun. Thanks for having me. Y'all enjoy the rest of your night. I'm going to bed.
I don't know what it's been like for you, but I think learning to socialize was a big challenge, because we're just so accustomed to any event that we do, whether it's, it was a standard thing. Let's meet up for a drink after work. I had to learn to like, hey, listen, let's go grab a coffee, let's go for a walk, things like that. I think that was, but it takes time, because these are, behaviors that are ingrained in us. It's very much something that sort of our society is used to. It just takes I'm so happy to see that there definitely has been sort of an awakening in this movement of people just realizing that being sober is not like, it's not a dirty word. You can live a normal life. And I've actually even found that what's interesting is working with like a lot of younger people, or being around, I should say, younger people, is that a lot of younger people don't really drink even the way that, someone kind of in our age group does.
Yeah. I was going to say, I was at a party last night with people that were, easily at least 10 years younger than me. Either recently graduated from college or something like that. And no giant ice chest full of beers, no, table with 14 bottles lining around. No, it was, you could watch a movie, you could sing karaoke, you can make bracelets, you can, work on a puzzle. I was just like, okay, I could get down with this. And, it's nice to see that the culture is kind of changing,
Oh, for sure.
more and more. But yeah.
I would say also, I don't know if it's got something to do with just being gay. I think gay culture definitely has a lot to do
Yes,
with
it
that.
does.
Unfortunately, we are part of a community where there's a lot of insecurity, a lot of self-loathing. A lot of us need professional help. I
Yes.
think, it's just like, no, I think about it, it's, at least for me, my experience, like, now again, in retrospect, it's like growing up, just never feeling comfortable with who you are, thinking for a long time that who you are is evil, it's not like it's wicked, whatnot, and then, yeah, you take all those feelings and as you grow older and all that. And yeah, definitely you get into, I really, I hope that gay culture also wakes up to this, that there are a lot of people in our community that don't need to be around alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of undiagnosed trauma that can lead someone down a very dark path for sure. So now you're, recently 5 years sober. What does sobriety look like for you today, and how do you keep moving down that path?
I'm an old lady that likes to garden. So
yes, for new hobbies.
No, like, as I said, learning to socialize, my social circle is tiny. I honestly, like, there was the person that I had called my best friend for many years. He pretty much completely vanished from the picture, and I can't really identify the why, but that was huge for me because it honestly, it felt like a breakup, a death. I don't know. So, and I'm sure he had his own reasons for it, but it was very painful because he just kind of disappeared from the picture. So I think it kind of put things into perspective for me in that sense, because if it was a little bit like, okay, well, this person that you've been friends with for years, for whatever reason, but just didn't even feel the need to have that talk with you. They chose to just disappear. If a person that you've considered that important in your life really has no trouble, just, I don't want to say getting rid of you, but essentially just vanishing from your life, then you really have to reevaluate who you've surrounded yourself with.
Yeah.
I do have, one of my closest friends, actually, he's a older gentleman, probably like in his 60s, I think. He's been sober for 20 some odd years. He lives between New York and Miami, but we keep in touch all the time. Via like WhatsApp and whatnot. Actually, hubby and I are going to go see him around Labor Day. Spend some time with him in Miami. It's, I think, surrounding myself with people that I think are far more authentic, and realizing that it's not the number of friends that you have, it's the quality of friendships that you have and relationships that you have.
Yeah.
And even that, isn't a guarantee that these people will be around forever. The hobbies, I definitely have become very dedicated to fitness. My spouse, he's got a background in personal training, so having his support, I do have to say, actually, again, just, this man has a heart of gold. He actually stopped drinking just to be supportive, and not because he had an issue. He just didn't, he's like, hey, listen, why not? It's obviously not something that I need. Why not, support you in this journey? So having that has been obviously amazing. I think, when you think of how much money you waste drinking at bars and then whatever else accompanies it, using those funds for other things, personally, he and I would love to travel. It's not like luxury travel. We just, we'll book a whatever ticket to some random city, find some little cheap hotel and just, explore. That's been amazing. as I said, I mean, definitely gardening. I've become a plant dad. So I have hundreds of plants at home, but it's something that I find actually very relaxing, very healing to work with them, to cultivate living things. My dogs, I have three rescues, two Frenchies and an English bulldog, and obviously they keep me super busy. But my life, I think, in many respects, has lost the sort of artificial luster, oh, I was at this bar, I was at this club, no, I'm a homebody now, but I'm completely happy being a homebody, just because I'm far happier now with, just these few very important things around me than I was, in a room with 25 other people that, didn't necessarily care about me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, congratulations on the journey, for sure.
Thank you.
And it sounds like a wonderful life. Yeah, when I first got sober, I was like, oh my God, all the money I'm going to save by not buying alcohol. No, it just went to a different hobby. So we just redirected those funds somewhere else. But much more
For sure.
productive, happy, fulfilling places. So
how long have you been sober?
A year and 4 months as of a couple days ago. So yeah, it's been just a little journey so far, but it's been a good one.
Good. I'm so happy to hear that. I honestly did not I had no idea that you were dealing with those issues. I'm something like this podcast, I think, exposing it is a big thing. Having that transparency on it, the fact that, it doesn't discriminate. Mm-hmm. It's, all classes, all races, all everything. But yeah, just really addressing the issue, is hopefully helpful to other people, realizing that, you can hit that rock bottom, but you can still find a way to kind of rebuild yourself. I mean, that was one of the things that when I did leave my rehab program, I was telling my psychologist, I was like, I'm scared because I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I've essentially, I've destroyed my career. I felt like I was I didn't have a place to turn to. As I mentioned to you, I finally found or came back into the fashion industry recently within the past 6 months, but it took me nearly 5 years to get back into this. I had to work in some other industries, but I do think I had the opportunity to work with unaccompanied migrant children entering the country. And I think maybe that also, too, having that opportunity to work for others, to help others, was also really helpful in my recovery process. Like, just realizing, hey, listen, you don't have it so bad. I mean, when you deal with these kids that just have faced these horrific life experiences, at age 11, 12, 13, but they're still they still haven't lost their will to keep moving forward. I think it's very inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that is where a lot of programs do have service built in to their model, right? And that kind of service work can look like anything, but it's just wherein what you're doing is not about you, right? But more about giving back to other people or helping other people in some way. But it goes both ways, right? By giving, we receive, sort of deal, the paradox of it all. But yeah, quite an experience. So I'm glad you are on the other side of it and, continuing through. Are you ready to get into some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
Let's go. Cue the sound effect of a ticking clock. No, just kidding. Right. All right. Fill in the blank. Recovery has given me
my life back.
Mm-hmm. What is one word you'd use to describe your recovery journey?
That's a tough one. One word to describe my recovery journey. Raw.
What is a daily habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Prayer.
If you find yourself struggling or triggered, what's the first thing you do?
Play with my dogs.
This or that, morning routine or night routine?
Morning routine.
Meditation or movement?
Movement.
Talking it out or writing it down?
Talking it out, although I'm working on writing it down.
Fair. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Name one book, song, movie, or television show that's been meaningful to your recovery.
Ooh, there's too many.
Just one.
There's this song by Sarah McLachlan. I can't remember the name. I want to say I believe it's called Wait or Elsewhere. I think, no, it's actually Elsewhere. But there's this line in that song that I love that it says, I can't be good to anyone else like this. And I think it was so moving because it's like you have to fix yourself before you can be beneficial or, play a meaningful part in anyone else's life.
Yeah, for sure. A piece of advice you return to when things get tough.
One day at a time.
One phrase or mantra you keep with you.
Gratitude. I think just being grateful for everything.
Yeah. And if someone hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
That there is hope, that, you really can be, I know that term is quite cliche, but rock bottom, I mean, literally waking up in a pool of your own vomit, not knowing how or when you got there. But if you have that willingness, and you're able to seek that, or you're willing, I should say, to seek that help, you can make it through to the other side.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Gil. I appreciate you being on here, and glad you were willing and are on the other side.
Oh, thank you, Chibi. It was good to see you. So Thank you for this. It was, I wasn't ready to catch all these feelings.
It happens. They just come.
Yeah.
They just come.
Good. No, but thank you. This was cool. I'm happy we had a chance to chat. So I'll have to come visit you in San Antonio soon.
Absolutely. That's it for this episode of The Speaker Meeting, breaking the silence one story at a time. A huge thank you to our guests today for sharing their journey with us. Recovery isn't easy, but conversations like this remind us that we're not alone and that change is possible. If you're struggling, know that there is help and there is hope. You don't have to do this alone. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. And if you'd like to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. You can submit your information at geminisproductions.com/thespeakermeeting. And if this conversation meant something to you, help us spread the word. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. The more we talk about recovery, the more we remind people that they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, recovery is real.